everybody, and welcome to episode 18 of the Paper Crane Yarns knitting podcast. My name is Ashley and I am the dyer behind Paper Crane Yarns. I am your host. I am the owner of the Paper Crane Yarns store located in Central Alabama, USA. You can find me on Instagram and Ravelry, as well as my own website as Paper Crane Yarns. So that's papercraneyarns.com. You can still find me on Etsy, although my shop is currently on vacation mode as I try to corral everybody who knows me on Etsy over to my website. And that is for many, many reasons, but yes, you can still find me on there if you would like to use that as an avenue to email me or reach out to me about a question you have about my store, my inventory, what have you, or you can email me at papercraneyarns@gmail.com. So yes, hello. Today is Tuesday, May 3rd, 2022, and this coming weekend is the Maryland Sheep and Wool Festival, so I am beyond excited. So it has been just a little over 2 weeks since I last recorded. I wasn't able to record this past weekend because, as many of you likely know, April 30th, which was this previous Saturday, was local yarn store day, and so my shop was nice and busy for the weekend. The weekend prior, I was vending at the Great Smoky Mountain Fiber Fair in Townsend, Tennessee, which is outside of Gatlinburg and Pigeon Forge area, and that was a blast. So I have just a little tiny bit of footage from that fair that I'll insert probably at the end, because I was so busy vending, I didn't get a chance to even walk around the fair myself. So I missed a lot of what was going on. I had a couple of really wonderful booths right next to me that I was able to check out and talk to the owners and get to know people that way. But yeah, I didn't get to leave my booth very much. So I have a little bit of footage of that, and I think that's about it. Hopefully I'll have a lot more to share from Maryland Sheep and Wool. So we all have that to look forward to. Yeah, thank you all so much for your support this past weekend, whether it was for the local yarn store day, and so many of you made purchases or visited me in person, or those who were wishing me well at the fiber fair. Just in general, if you have had anything kind to say, or you've reached out in any way, just thank you. It's been wonderful having all the support of the community. So thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So I am going to try to keep today's episode a little bit short, since I have lots of little footage segments and B-roll that I can insert, or was planning to insert. So I'm going to go ahead and get started with my knitting projects. So I have 4 finished objects, or 2 finished objects and 2 half-finished objects to show you. And the first is the Go Get 'Em Tiger, and I cannot for the life of me remember the designer, so I will have that linked below with everything else. But my last episode, I had just started the sweater, I think the day before recording, and I was nearly done when I last recorded, I want to say. This project took like a day, so this was a wonderfully quick project, and the pattern had also just come out when I decided to knit this, so it was one of those situations where you see the pattern, you have the yarn, and you cast it on a whim, and that's what I did. So yep, this is the Go Get 'Em Tiger, and it is a very, very cute little DK weight baby sweater for my daughter, who is coming in July. Wow, I should have taken notes. I can't remember if I made the smallest size or the second size. One of the two. I do know it should fit her by the time it gets cold in the winter. But yeah, so here is this adorable DK weight baby sweater. Such a quick knit, and I have not blocked it. Not that it needs it too much, but I probably will do a little bit of light blocking just to kind of smooth out some of the stitches and let them open up. But the yarns are my yarns. These are my hand-dyed yarns, and I talked a lot about this in my last episode, but these were the first yarns I ever dyed. This wool was a gift from my husband when I told him I wanted to start dyeing yarn, and he got me my initial dyes and skeins of wool, and so I've had these for a while. I did make a Soldotna crop by Caitlin Hunter out of some of this yarn, and so I had plenty left over, and I still have leftovers from these yarns too. But yeah, it's so cute and tiny. But anyway, so yeah, here is this super tiny baby sweater. I really love it. It's just 100% merino DK wool, so it is nice and squishy. There's a lovely stitch definition. It's just teal and a variegated pink skein that I dyed. This was the first time I ever dyed variegation and the first time I dyed a tonal. So yeah, I just love the thought of my yarn business, the way that it developed, and you know, my husband was so intrinsic in that whole process and supporting me, and then we're starting our family, and getting to turn around and use those yarns for this project feels really special and monumental. Yeah, so that's my Go Get 'em Tiger by insert designer below. So my next project to show you is a sweater that I have just completed, and this is my Aurealis by Jennifer Steingass. It is a colorwork sweater. It's absolutely stunning, and this one has not been blocked either, and I will definitely be blocking this to help open up the colorwork, but overall it is just such a stunning sweater. So I may throw this on in a second just so you can see, or insert some footage, because despite being 7 months pregnant and having a belly and a size that I never could have imagined, it's exhausting. The sweater does still fit me pretty well, so I will have to put this on to show you. This is my Aurealis. I love it so much. I should have probably worn this the whole episode because it's so stunning. It really is. I'm so happy with it. I was worried because it's in the 80s outside that my shop would get too warm, so I'm justified in not wearing it, but look at it. It's so pretty. I really love it very much. And again, this is unblocked, so I think it turned out really, really well. I love the sleeve length. This is perfect for me. I will say right now, my fingers are hooking into the floats. That might be the only thing I'll have to watch out for, not because it's annoying, but because I don't want to snag anything. It almost hides my belly. See, there's my belly, and there it's not because of the positive ease. It's so wonderful. This is such a cozy sweater. I'm so glad to have finished it. I love the neckline, everything about this. It's really wonderful. I think I knit a combination of sizes for this guy. I started with either a 3 or a 4. I wanted a lot of positive ease with the sweater, especially with the color work. And because I put it down for a while and came back to it, I swear I don't remember what I was knitting, and I think I may have finished this in a different size than I started it. I'm not quite sure what happened, but I mean, all the math worked out. The color, I had knit all of the color work before putting it down, so I wasn't too worried about the amount of stitches, and I kind of just followed the pattern from that point. And then it was when I picked up for the sleeves that I was not sure what size I had been knitting on, because the count for the pickup for the held stitches was not what I was expecting. So long story short, it worked out, and I love the size. Currently it fits not too oversized because of my belly, but when I have my baby and am back down to my original size, I think this will fit exactly how I was hoping. But so this is the Kelbourne Woolens Scout wool. that I used, and I picked this yarn up from the Perfect Blend yarn and tea shop in Saugerties, New York, when I went to Rhinebeck this past October. I really fell in love with that yarn, and so I carry it in my own shop. And for local yarn store day, somebody did purchase 5 skeins of Scout, so I'm really excited to see what she does with it. I hope she knits a sweater, because this is my new favorite sweater yarn. I really love this. The feeling is just wonderful. It is so cozy and warm, and yeah, I really can't say enough good things about it. I think it's absolutely stunning up close. So I really am a huge fan of this wool, and I highly recommend using this for garments. I think that this was a wool that was really designed for garment knitting. So the construction of the sweater, I love the neckline. You can choose to do a traditional ribbed sort of collar neckline, but I am somebody who doesn't like things really tight against my neck. Although I do think this sweater, because I knit it too big, then since I knit it with a lot of ease, having a traditional collar probably would have been fine. But I really like this rolled neckline, and the fact that it has a bit of a wider reach here on my shoulders. So I really love this neckline. And the sleeves do something sort of similar. I think that this is the only part of the sweater that really needs blocking, because I was doing color work on Magic Loop, which is not my favorite combination. I just don't like Magic Loop in general, but the color work definitely came out a little bit tighter here than it did in the yoke of the sweater, and so there is just a slight amount of puckering you can kind of see here and in a couple of places. But there are a couple of sleeve options for this sweater pattern too. So I think there was a short sleeve version, there was a sort of ribbed cuff version, and then there was this color work option, which I could not pass up. So of course I did this one. And the bind off was interesting. It was an applied I-cord, if I remember correctly. So the binding was fun. It has a similar sort of rolled effect to the neckline, and yeah, can't really say much more about it except for the fact that it is really beautiful. For Jennifer Steingass's pattern photos, for the color work, she uses a gradient yarn, and so there's a lot more color interest in her sample. And when I picked the yarns for this, I was a little bit worried that because I picked a solid color heathered skein for it's this mulberry heather colorway, and there's a little bit of black in there, but it is fairly tonal. I was not sure if it would kind of fall flat, but the stark contrast I think helps it to not fall flat. And yeah, I just love it so much. There's so many Jennifer Steingass patterns I would be so happy to knit that I intend on knitting at some point in the future, but I'm happy this was my first one because I really love it very much. And this to me looks so much like Star Trek now that I'm looking at it. Oh wow, okay, that's great. I'll show you my floats because I always find that to be very interesting, and I love showing people when they come in the shop who are not familiar with color work, especially when they ask like, what does that look like on the inside? I'm like, well, let me show you, because it's not what you would expect. It's probably what you would expect, but maybe not. So there are the floats. Yeah, I just love the way that looks too. That's so interesting. And I think that they all look very neat and tidy. These little sections at the top and the bottom are really like the longest stretches that you go of between, like for your color work, color A and color B, as far as how many stitches you're skipping before you pick up your contrast. So I think there are 7 stitches of color A in between each of these color B stitches. So this is the only place where you kind of have these elongated floats. Everything else is pretty uniform. I mean, there's a couple of rows where you have longer gaps, but I didn't find that it made it difficult to keep a steady gauge and tension, and so I don't find there to be any puckering in the yoke, which makes me really happy, because the last colorwork sweater I did was Marshland by Tin Can Knits, and I probably could have been a little bit more, I could have used more awareness when I was knitting that colorwork, because there were a couple places at the very top where I started where there was some puckering, and it did block out for the most part, but so yeah. Aurealis, Now Inside Out by Jennifer Steingass. Oh, I love it. I just love it. Next two half-finished objects, you probably would have guessed, are socks. One I was working on in my last episode, and that is this vanilla sock made out of the Kremke wool company. This is their lazy linen, which is 75 or 80% wool and 20% linen, I think. I think it's an 80-20, but it might be 70, or it might be 85-15. Now I don't remember. And now there's linen in my eye. But it is a blend of wool and linen. And so I did decide to make a pair of socks with this. So this is an entirely natural fiber sock. And I swear there's somebody who has a podcast who's hosting like a natural sock along. And I don't remember who. If you know what I'm talking about and it's still going on, please let me know so that I can participate, because I sort of joined without thinking about it, I guess. I knit this because I do carry this wool in my shop, and I carry 4 colorways. I ordered this as a sample so that I could do a sample for the shop, and I really, really love it so much. One of my customers and friends slash knit night attendees, she bought a red skein and knit her very first pair of socks out of it, and they came out stunning. This yarn is gorgeous. It's really beautiful, and just like the Kelbourne Woolens Scout, I want to knit everything out of this. This is of course a fingering weight yarn, and so there's so many possibilities, but I really, really love this yarn very much. It has it's a deep forest green color, so it's a beautiful tonal, but it has all of these linen strands that you can see are sticking out, and you can kind of see it on the sides, but yeah, hopefully you get that, you can kind of get that picture, but it's beautiful. And I found my gauge with this yarn to be really, really great. If you watch my previous episodes about my Kelbourne, my Woolens and Nosh self-striping sock yarn, that's the 90% Targhee, 10% nylon, I was kind of complaining that I felt like that yarn was changing my gauge and they came out really large. I think I was knitting, and that may have had a little bit to do with it, because it certainly was a thicker strand than this one. But I was knitting really loosely, and I'm wondering if it was pregnancy hormones, because your body does relax and sort of ease up when you're pregnant. So it could have been a case of pregnancy hormones, because when I was partially through the second sock, I started to tighten my gauge and I noticed a huge difference. So this sock, I feel like, benefited a lot from me recognizing that. You can kind of see almost a line right here where I went from a very loose gauge to a very even, much tighter gauge. With this dark yarn, you may or may not be able to see it, but you can kind of see where it's sticking out a lot more here, and it kind of narrows. And I was able to hold this sort of tension throughout the rest of the sock. This was a cuff down with a heel flap and gusset. And yeah, I find that this fits much better than some socks I've made in the past. So going forward, I think I just need to have a tighter gauge. So I'm kind of glad I figured that out. It's not so much the yarn. I probably could have just gone down a needle size, but I'm already on a 2.25 millimeter, which I know many of us use, but I didn't want to have to go down to a 2 millimeter. So yes, I'm glad I worked that out for myself that way. So I have about 50 grams left. I had accidentally separated my initial skein into 2 little cakes that somehow were mysteriously both 50 grams by total accident. So I have this entire cake left here, and there were some leftovers from the cake I used for this one too. So yeah, I got a nice long sock. I love this neutral. I kind of think this makes me think of like a grandpa like in a study, which I love. So yes, beautiful. Not much more I can say, I guess, about this vanilla sock, but I just loved the yarn and working with it, and I'm excited to make the second one. So for my last finished object, sorry, I kicked the camera. For my last finished object, it is another sock, and this one is actually a test knit for a bee in the bonnet, which is Lauren Rad. I believe Lauren Rad. Since my last episode, I was looking for test knitter calls because I wanted to participate in a test knit, and I came across one that I could not pass up. I applied for it immediately, and a couple days later, she told me I got in, and so that was right before I went to the Great Smoky Mountain Fiber Fair, so I wasn't able to cast on until I got back. And once I did, I completed the sock in 2 days because I love it so much. And it does say on the test knitter call that this is a shareable, postable test knit, which is why I'm sharing it with you. The test knit is due by May 9th, so I don't know if Lauren has given us an official release date for this pattern. I'll make sure to let you know when it does release, but I'm guessing it's going to be sometime in the near future since we're wrapping up this coming week with the test knit. But all that to say, I used a skein of my hand-dyed yarn, and this was a tough pick for me because I really wanted to use this BFL skein that I have of my Garden Gate colorway, and it's like this mauve and red and black and really stunning, but it's 100% BFL content. And I do know that you could make a beautiful pair of socks and that the fiber would last despite no nylon content, but I wasn't sure for how long. And with this being such a beautiful pattern design, A, I didn't want to lose the socks too quickly or have to mend them, and B, with it being a darker yarn, Lauren and I agreed, and many of you on my Instagram poll agreed that I should go with the lighter skein, so I did. So this is Cottage on my 75/25 merino nylon. It is a pale blush pink with lots of tans and dark brown. And here is the stunning sock. So here is this lace pattern that runs down the entire front of the sock and along the back down to the heel. So on the side, you have this beautiful cable and lace detail, but I of course think it looks the most gorgeous from the front. And I hope I say this word correctly. This is it's Pyrifera, or let's see. I'm going to say it's Pyrifera. There's a beautiful story behind why she created this pattern, and I'm going to share it with you because this was part of what drew me in to her design. It says, in the Santa Barbara Channel, a massive kelp forest sways in the current and provides habitats for a host of ocean creatures. The giant kelp that forms the bulk of this forest is known scientifically as Macrocystis pyrifera. The leafy pattern on these socks reminded me of the leaves on the giant kelp plants that often wash up on the beaches here in Ventura. So how could I not be enthralled by the lovely concept for this design? And I can absolutely see her vision with the way that the pattern knits up. So yeah, this took 2 days because I loved it so much. The pattern repeat was really fun. The only thing that I was frustrated with was the knit 3 together on my little 9-inch circular needles. That gave me a hard time, but everything else was very simple. I would say this is a wonderful pattern if you have already knit your first pair of socks and maybe that's all you've done. I think you could do this. The cables are really easy cables, and if you are just patient, and again, if you're patient, but curious beginner, I do think you could accomplish this pattern when it releases. So now the only thing that I was kind of about was the fact that once I started knitting this, I realized how flesh toned it sort of is, and so I was a little bit worried that when I wore this, it would kind of negate the cable and lace detailing on the leg. But trying it on, it's just dark enough that it's a little bit different. I have a slight yellow tint to my skin, and so I think having this pink base with tan and yellow and brown sort of variegation, yeah, that's why I was sort of worried about the contrast between it and my leg. but again, wearing it, it seems to be okay. So I'll try to put in some footage so you can kind of see it in action. I do think it's just gorgeous. It really is. And I love the way that Cottage knit up. You kind of see more of the way that Cottage knits here on the bottom of the foot where it's just stockinette. I did love knitting this little square toe. Yeah, I just can't stop admiring it. These are the most beautiful socks I've ever made. Or should I say sock? I need to cast on the second. For the test, she only requires you to have one complete, but I would feel much better about it if I had the second complete, so I might go ahead and cast on the second one today. I'll certainly be able to work on it when I am in the car driving all the way to Maryland, which is a 12-hour drive from Alabama. So when it's my husband's turn to drive, I can hopefully crank this out and get my second one done. So yeah, check out this pattern when it releases, but check out A Bee in the Bonnet in general. I'm so thankful that she let me into her test pattern group or her test knit group, because she's a wonderful pattern designer and she creates some of the most beautiful knits I have seen, especially when it comes to socks. So make sure you check out her work and her patterns, and I hope I get to test for her again in the future. So for works in progress today, I think I'm only going to share two because they are the two that I've made the most significant. No, that's a lie. I'm going to share two. One is a new cast on that I have made good progress on. I cast it on after I finished my first test knit sock, and the other is a project that I am enthralled with, but I have not picked it up since my last episode. I do want to show it though, because I think in my last episode the way I showed it was extremely disjointed. So the first one I'm going to show you is knit out of Purl Soho's linen quill. This is the pale mushroom colorway. Here are the two skeins I have not wound yet, and it is not a half and half triangle wrap. It is the Regan Cardigan by Isabell Kraemer. But yeah, this yarn is stunning. I think I said in my last episode that I completely understand the hype behind this yarn. It is 50% fine Highland wool, 35% alpaca, and 15% linen. And it's a fingering weight, 439 yards to 100 grams. So yeah, really, really very beautiful. Just like with the other wool and linen yarn I was working with, I love the way that the linen sort of peeks through and creates such a lovely textural detail. So this project is currently in what I will call a new project bag that I have. This is one that I sewed, and it was a happy little accident because for the front panel of the fabric, I sewed it upside down. You can see with the little bunny and the fox and the mouse, they're all upside down, and the back panel is right side up. But when I was making a bunch of bags to take to the fiber fair, yeah, I noticed I had sewn this one upside down, so that means that I acquired a new project bag, and I'm not complaining. So my Reagan is in this drawstring bag. I am also currently sold out of all of my drawstring bags. If you were wondering, I did have a lot of people message me about wanting to get one, and specifically a lunar moth bag or the mushrooms bag that I did. At this point, it's been at least a month ago, but the fabric for those bags are out of stock, so I can't get more right now to make them, but I have my eye out, and when it becomes available, I will purchase it so I can sew some more. The inside are these little tiny strawberries. So very, very whimsical, very me. Okay, so here is what I have left of my first cake. I have definitely knit quite a bit of this yarn, and I only cast this on a few days ago, but I've been working monogamously on this since I cast it on. So let's see. Now, showing it is going to be a bit strange because the construction is very interesting. First, I will show you a picture. The editing software I use does not have a feature that allows me to insert photos, and I have not taken the time to learn how to use a new software, so please forgive my primitive editing skills here, which are none. I hope you don't mind the paper photo of the pattern, but if you'd like to see it in more detail, you can click on the link below to check it out. I'm trying to find the best photo to show you. So this is Reagan by Isabell Kraemer, and it is a cardigan that is versatile. You can wear it right side up or upside down. There's a couple different ways you can style it. It has this harebell lace pattern in the front panels, and then this is all stockinette. So I'm currently on the stockinette portion. Here is the sweater, I believe, worn upside down, so to speak. So that is with the lace up at the top and then the stockinette down below, which is also lovely. That has a really fun drape to it. So yeah, I'm excited about the finished object for this one. But knitting it has been fun, and I've already had to learn a new skill. So let's talk about that. So this pattern, and it is paid for, so I won't be able to share everything with you, but this pattern starts with a provisional cast on, or a winding cast on, or a winding cable cast on. There's a couple of things you might know it as. I did the cable version for the provisional cast on, so that was where, and this was fun to teach myself, but you have your two needles held on top of each other. So let's say theoretically there's a needle on this, there's not, and a needle where the stopper is and there's not, but let's say these were two different size needles and two different cables. So you're holding them on top of one another and you're casting on around both. So you'll have two separate cables and 4 total needles in that project. If you put needles onto the cable that you're casting onto. It took me a few tries, and I think I had done it right the first time I did it, but I wasn't holding the yarn tight enough, so it was very, very loose, and I realized that was not what I needed to do, so I did it again. And yeah, I'm excited. I think it went fairly well for my first time. I'm really hoping that I did it correctly. I have all the correct stitch counts, so I think it's all fine. But anyway, so you provisional cast on from this end, and this is stockinette, so it's of course rolled. It's actually a lot wider than the fabric looks currently, but you are knitting this cardigan sideways. So you start with one end, and this is the back, but I'll demonstrate on the front here. So essentially what you're doing is you're starting from here, and you're leaving a provisional cast on so that at the end you can come and do the second sleeve without having to pick up stitches. So it has a beautiful seamless look. Let's see. So these stitch markers are marking where the body stitches are here, and I have already started on the sleeve for this side. So Very, very interesting construction. Yep, it's hard to look at because it can be difficult to sort of wrap my own mind around it. I'm not struggling with it, but it's hard to hold up and show, I guess is what I'm saying here. So you knit back and forth, so stockinette, so knitting and then purling and knitting and purling. So there's a lot of purling involved in this project. You go to your desired, well, the pattern's instructed inches for your size, and I'm knitting the size small. And so at that point, once you reach those inches, you measure for where to place these stitch markers, and then from that point, you pick up, well, you place your live stitches on DPNs and you start with your sleeve. So I'm working on the sleeve right now. I've already done 2 of the decreases out of, I think I have 5 more decreases. And then I'll come over here and unravel this provisional cast on, put these stitches on DPNs and do the same. And then I think from that point, I will pick up for the lace in the body. So that is where you start to actually have to pick up for the stitches. Okay. I hope you're getting a good, yeah, this is not much to look at. It's like a beige rectangle, and that's probably not very exciting. It is gorgeous in person though, and the light's probably blowing it out a little bit, but I love, there we go. The fabric it's creating is really gorgeous, and it's, I can tell, going to be a very stunning piece when it's complete. So yes, that is my Regan cardigan, or the start of it. But knowing me recently with my knitting, I may even have this done by my next episode. We shall see. I wouldn't put it past myself because I've been doing a lot of knitting and not a lot of much else recently. In my defense, I feel so pregnant that it is uncomfortable to do much else. So I'm embracing this time period for lots of knitting and just being still because my back hurts. Okay. So the last project I will share with you today, and maybe next episode I'll go into a little bit more of some of the other projects that I have been working on, and maybe I'll have put in some work, but we'll see. So this one's in my Labyrinth project bag by Lila Styles, which I do not think fits this pattern very much at all. This is the Calville shawl by Gabriella of the Merryweather Knitting podcast, and she's got an Instagram page and a blog, but this is her pattern, and oh my goodness, now that I'm looking at it, I feel like this is what I want to work on today. Uh-oh, stitches off the needles here. It is so stunning. It's been put away in my bag now for what feels like 2 weeks, so it's kind of like I'm getting to look at it with fresh eyes again. Yep, it's absolutely gorgeous. So you start with this this moss stitch section, and I love the texture in the moss in the moss stitch. Such a beautiful element, so much better than if she had just done like garter or stockinette or what have you. And then there's this beautiful spine that goes down the center of the project. Here is the sort of the basket weave portion, this lattice section, which is also truly stunning. And so this is where I'm going to have to remember which row I'm on for that repeat so I can pick it back up. I'm really bad about walking away in the middle of, sorry, there's a daycare next to me, next to my yarn store, and often there's young people outside talking, so sometimes I have to pause. But anyway, yeah, it's such a stunning, beautiful project. This is 100% alpaca. This is the Juniper Moon Farm Harriet alpaca, and this is a DK weight. It's 100 grams, 218 yards, which now I'm feeling like it sounds like a worsted weight. Well, regardless, it's stunning, and I have this orange color here. This is 1015 is the colorway, I'm very excited to have this for fall this year. My husband and I, you may or may not know this if you follow my Instagram. My husband and I are very avid gardeners. Specifically, he gardens and I design and request things in the garden, and he's very, very good about making those visions happen. And one thing that we have coming up in the yard quite a bit is we are preparing for fall, I suppose, because and here it is, only the beginning of May. And don't get me wrong, spring is my favorite season. I'm so happy. I don't want it to go anywhere, but we had some heirloom pumpkins in our yard from last fall. I am the person who leaves the pumpkins out because I get the big, beautiful fairy tale heirloom pumpkins, and we put them out as early as we can start getting them, and I just think that they're the most beautiful decoration in fall. I know I'm not alone. That's not some unique thing about me, but it is something I enjoy, and so we keep them until they are completely giving up. And our pumpkins from last late September is when we got them, I think. They lasted until the beginning of March before they started to rot. But when they were rotting, they were all of the seeds were sprouting. So we planted a pumpkin patch in our backyard that's going to cascade down our hill. And so I'm very excited that we'll have our own personal pumpkin patch. Every year we end up having pumpkins in our yard that are volunteers from our compost, because we inevitably put the pumpkins in our compost. And so then we have lots of little pumpkins growing, and they grow these little pie pumpkins usually. So we'll see what we get. It's always hit or miss with like the heirloom varieties and just seeing what will actually grow. But we have so many pumpkins that the seeds sprouted, and so he put them in starter trays and until they got larger, and now they're all planted in the ground. There are quite a few, and they're doing really well. So we'll just have to watch out for squash bugs, because we also have crookneck squash growing, and lots of other wonderful, wonderful things I'm excited for. But wow, all that to say, I'm excited to have our own little pumpkin patch in the yard. I feel like this shawl is going to be such a stunning thing to get to enjoy simultaneously, and drink some nice coffee or like a pumpkin beer, and just really embrace all of the warmth and coziness that fall brings, and I'll have my baby to enjoy it with. So yes, very excited. Yes, I love this project. I love it very, very much. I have one full skein and a good bit of the second skein left, and it calls for 3 skeins. This is the yarn that Gabriella used in her pattern, just to bring it back to the knitting here. So hopefully I will end up having enough. I did not check my gauge for this, so I'm not sure how similar it is to her, and hopefully this will be enough. We'll see. If I have to buy a 4th skein, I guess I'll just have to, but no, I'm sure it'll be enough. I definitely thought this would be a shorter episode today, and that I would be able to just talk through everything since there weren't that many things, but I guess I did share 6 projects, so 44 minutes for me. That's pretty good. That's less than 10 minutes per project, so I'm doing okay. So the last thing I'll show you are just a couple of things that I've gotten recently, and let's see, the first being, where did I put it? The first being this gorgeous, scam likely phone call. This gorgeous pair of scissors. These are so stunning and very sharp. They're sort of this bronze color, and they have little birds and flowers and fronds and whatnot. So this was actually something very special that I got, because this was gifted to me. I went to a Fiber Guild picnic for the Birmingham Fiber Guild, which is a local group in Alabama that's been around, I think they said, since 1975, which is amazing. And they had their first in-person event back in April after 2 years of not meeting because of COVID. And so they met for their, I guess, their spring picnic, and they let me know about it, and they invited me because they saw an article about my store opening. and it was such a fun time. It was great getting to meet some people, and when I signed in, I guess it was also an entry for a door prize, and I won one. So that was really wonderful and very sweet, because I don't ever win things, I feel. So I was just very grateful, and they're gorgeous, but I'll always have such a lovely memory with these. Yeah, I can't get over how really nice these are. So the next thing I got these for my store to hang up. That's my excuse. I'm sure you guys know, but I keep kicking my camera. One of the wonderful artists that I work with, and I carry her products in my store, is Lindsay of SimplyServing. I'm sure you know her from her polymer clay charms. She has these gorgeous illustrations that she does. I carry her wooden charms personally. I would love to one day carry her clay charms, maybe down the line, but for now I carry a variety of her wooden charms, which are her illustrations applied to these beautiful little wooden charms on clasps. So I have those on my website, but I am also obsessed with her artwork and her prints, and she does a series of hands knitting different whimsical things that are yarn-like but not yarn. And you've probably seen two that I already have in my store. I have her little cherry tomato garden one that she did, I think last summer, and the other one, or may have been the summer before, I don't know. I bought them when they came out, so it was either last year or the year before, probably last year. And the other one is blackberries, and they are both so stunning. So I picked up two more because she just released a new design, and I had to have it. And so with it, I decided to get one of her older designs. This one, I'm not sure when she illustrated it and put it out for sale, but I didn't already have it, so I went ahead and got it with this other one. So this was the one that she already had out that I didn't yet own, and this one is a rose plant here. This is very much like the tomato and blackberry ones, along the same, like obviously the gardening idea, knitting up the plants. It's absolutely beautiful. But then, and I apologize for the reflection of the light, I'm trying to keep it out, but this next one, I'm sure you're all going to take a deep breath when you see this and immediately go and buy one for yourself. So this one is mushrooms and this really deep foliage. It looks like this stunning tree, and the detail in the mushrooms is just so beautiful. And again, I'm sorry for the glare, but so yeah. So I have these two now, and I'm so in love with them. I keep forgetting to bring nails over to my shop to actually put them up, so they're not up yet, but they will be when I remember to bring those from my house. Yeah, I can't wait to add these to the collection. So the other two I have in black frames. These two I put in white frames, and I'm going to put these ones on the outsides of the other two with the black frames, so I think it's going to look really stunning. Okay, so I'm really excited about this because this is a book that I've wanted since it was announced, and that is Star Wars Knitting the Galaxy, which is the official Star Wars knitting pattern book. I'm sorry if this text is reversed, if I forget to flip the footage, but that is the title, Star Wars Knitting the Galaxy, the official Star Wars knitting book by Tanis Gray, and it's a collection of different designers who submitted patterns for acceptance into this book, and so there's quite a few different designers featured here. And I bought it for, well, all of the patterns, but two specifically. And one is a pattern I'm going to knit for my husband for our 3rd year anniversary, so our 3rd wedding anniversary, which will be in August. This will be my gift to him, and let me flip to it so that I may show you. Oh, but first, I just opened to these lightsaber socks. These are really great. I'm going to have to do this. I use a purple lightsaber for my cosplay, so of course I like this sample. So this is what I am knitting. This is the Chancellor Palpatine scarf. I'll try to show you up close. So my husband's favorite character from the movies is Palpatine. Or at least it's definitely in his top 3. He's definitely in his top 3 favorites, and so I thought this would be a really nice gift to give him. It's a cabled scarf, and yeah, I'm just really excited about it. So the pattern designer, let's see, who is that? Oh, this one is designed by Tanis Gray. Tanis Gray calls for the Acacia Concept Cotton Merino, I think is what it's called. Yeah, Concept Cotton Merino. And they used color number 53, which is crimson. And for the life of me, I could not find that one in stock anywhere except for maybe somewhere in Europe. And the cost to purchase it and bring it in would have been like astronomical, almost $200, I think. So yeah, that didn't happen. So then I thought I would just try to find red. I struggled with finding red and somebody who was selling it for a reasonable price who wasn't out of the country. So I'm not quite sure. I'd never heard of Acacia before, but I, in my research, found that they are more popular than I probably would have known. But it seems like a lot of the colors are out of stock, so I'm wondering if they're experiencing some of the supply chain issues that I have become all too familiar with, and I'm sure many of you have. So I ended up having to get the Cotton Merino Tweed by Acacia, and I got the red, so it won't quite have this deep undertone so the crimson is like red and sort of black or dark gray marled kind of look. So my version won't have quite as much depth and the darkness to it, but it will have the tweed, and I think it'll be still stunning. So I'm waiting for that to come in so I can cast on this project and get it done in time for our anniversary and give that to him as a gift. If you know him, don't tell him because this is a surprise. So yes, very excited. There are many patterns in here I want to make for both of us, but that's the first one I plan to make. I also bought this for a pattern that I want to make for my daughter when she's a little bit older. I'm trying to come across it here. Here it is. And it's so cute. It is a little Ewok hood. Yep, I love it. I'm sure you all love it too and can see why I love it. So, but this is really the only, I was going to say new pattern books that I've purchased, but I purchased this from not thrift books, but a similar site. So I didn't purchase this new, I guess, but it's the newest knitting book that I own. Every other knitting book I have is from Second and Charles, which is like I'm sure you probably know, but it is a resale place where you can get books, Lego, video games, consoles, what have you. And I always go to their nonfiction, the knitting section, and I pick out books from there. So this is the newest knitting book that I have, and there are so many that I would really love, but they are quite pricey, and rightfully so, because of the amount of work and design that goes into each book. I totally get it, but I can't usually afford them. I was happy to find this one for essentially half off of the retail price. But, oh, here's another look at that scarf. So anyway, yep, I'm excited to knit the patterns in this book. At some point over the years, I will get to make these mini designs. Okay. I hope you're still with me. So the last thing I'll show you is actually I am so bad about this today, you guys. I'm sorry. I've kicked you so many times. Please don't take it personally. So the only other thing I have to show you is from the Great Smoky Mountain Fiber Fair, and I was very good. I didn't purchase anything, partially because I was there to make money and I needed to focus on that primarily for the health of my business and making it worth the trip. but my mom came out. Yeah, I don't even think I've mentioned my mom and my dad and my sister, my best friend Kira and her boyfriend Steve, and of course my husband. All of these people came out to Tennessee from Alabama with me to show their support and help me, and we all shared a cabin together. It was such a lovely time. I was so grateful to have that time and just to get to spend it with them. But the fact that all of these people came out to support me, and you know, it's just, yeah, it's really wonderful. Since my best friend Jerome died back in October, I struggle a lot with feeling, I struggle a lot with some of the things that I deal with and I think about, and knowing just what an impact and like how much of a hole that his passing left in my life. It's so bizarre to be finding, to find success and to meet goals and whatnot without him here, because yeah, he passed right before I started my business in full force, and he was one of my biggest supporters. I try not to talk about this too often because it's really hard, but tomorrow he would have been 31, so he's been on my mind a lot recently, of course. I mean, I think about him every day, but just I've been thinking about his family and what they must be going through right now. And anyway, so to have all of the closest people in my life support me the way that they do, it really alleviates a lot of that sadness. And I'm just reminded all the time with like the gratitude that I need to have for these wonderful people who love me as much as I love them. You know, after experiencing such a sudden loss of somebody so young, and I'd known him for so long, it's so shocking because you would never expect it, especially when they are lost in such a tragic and unexpected way. Yeah, it's a reminder for all of us, I think, that we need to be grateful for those that we have, and just don't forget to tell people that you appreciate them. It's really important, and especially when they show you support and care in any little way. Just make sure that that doesn't go unnoticed and that they know that. And so to those people who I'm talking about, if you're watching this right now, I hope you know that I definitely feel those ways toward you. So, oh goodness, okay. Anyway, so my lovely mother bought me a gift when we were at the Smoky Mountain Fiber Fair, and I'm going to share that with you. So there was a farm there, Arcadia Farm of Seymour, which is located in Tennessee. I think they said it was only about 45 minutes away from the fair. They are a sheep farm in Tennessee, and this was some of their wool. So my mom got me one of each of what they had there, and I'm really excited. I do have my gorgeous drop spindle, so I could keep practicing on here. This is one that I got from New York Sheep and Wool in October. It's I think it's called a unicorn spinner. You can find these online. I think they're about $45. I would just Google unicorn spinner. You'll probably find something similar if you're interested. It's an acrylic resin, I think, base. And anyway, stunning. But my husband and I do plan on purchasing our own wheel, hopefully sooner than later, but we shall see. Actually, my husband is really interested in learning how to spin too, so I'm excited to eventually get a wheel, because that will be something for both of us. He really has learned so much about knitting and the fiber community and the fiber worlds, and yeah, he's done a wonderful job. I mean, he really listens to me sometimes, and now I'm not saying that I would expect him not to, but sometimes I ramble about yarn and probably things that are kind of dull if you're not, you know, as into it as we are. And he is such a good listener because sometimes he'll bring things up and I'm like, where did you learn that? Or I'll forget what something's called and he'll say, oh yeah, that. And I'm just always so impressed by how well he listens and absorbs the things that I tell him about something he's not really involved in necessarily. But all that to say, he does want to learn how to spin on a wheel. So anyway, I can't decide if I'm going to save these for when we do get our wheel because they are precious to me, or if I'm going to go ahead and start playing with one, maybe one of these white ones with my drop spindle, just to continue to play with the drop spindle and get better at that. Something I always love is when farms sell you fiber that's named after the sheep that it came from. So this one is from Kate. This is Romaldale wool. And actually they all are. Oh, no, they're not. This one is Shropshire wool, and this sheep's name is Shrop, which is very fitting, and I love it. Shrop the sheep. Or if you're my sister-in-law, she calls multiple sheep Shope, so maybe it's Shrop the Shope. And then this one is Romaldale wool, and this is from Cora. So very, very, absolutely beautiful and so soft, very stunning. Okay, I thought I was going to keep this short today, and I had a lot more to say than I thought. So I'm going to go ahead and stop recording so that I can get this edited and uploaded, since I have a big weekend ahead of me with traveling to Maryland. So I'm really so very excited to go to Maryland Sheep and Wool, especially since I'm missing Rhinebeck this year because I'll have a newborn. I'm glad I'm getting to take this trip before she arrives. I kind of felt like this was my last chance for a little while to just get out and do something with my husband and just enjoy each other's company. And yes, I'm looking forward to it. We're staying in Baltimore and then we're turning around and we're coming right back. So it's a very quick trip. So yeah, I did go ahead and apply for the Carolina Fiber Fest for next year to be a vendor. So I will be hearing back, I think, June 1st as to whether or not I get accepted. So hopefully there will be something positive that comes out of that, and I can put that on my schedule for next year so I can see some of you at the Carolina Fiber Fest. I am also going to apply to Maryland Sheep and Wool for next year, and that application opens, I think, in June. So yeah, we'll see how that goes. That's I will say, as a recap from going to Townsend for the Smoky Mountain Fiber Fair, that was my first experience, hence I did learn quite a bit. I think our booth was successful and beautiful, but it was a lot of hard work to make it happen because we took 2 cars and just, you know, regular sized cars to get basically the entire contents of my shop to Tennessee and set it all up and then bring back what was left. That was a lot. So hopefully next year, if I do get into Maryland Sheep and Wool or Carolina Fiber Fest or one of these bigger shows, we'll have had enough time to figure out a solution for traveling and transporting everything, because my goodness, that was doable but strenuous. So yes, okay. I will see you after Maryland Sheep and Wool. I hope that you are still enjoying everything that you're working on, or if you're not, I hope you cast on something new and that you just spend time doing the things that you enjoy, and make sure that you give a hug to somebody that you love and tell them that you love them. That's my wisdom for today. So without further ado, I should probably get to work. Bye everybody. Thank you for watching. the aftermath of attending a fiber fair and bringing everything that I carry. I now have to set up basically my entire store. So this will be fun. At least it gives me a chance to clean and to remind myself of all the lovely yarn that I have, I guess, if I'm trying to look on the bright side. I have my work cut out for me. We are many hours later and we are back in business. So this is everything I have left from the show. I sold out of a ton of colorways, so I have a big dye session coming up once I order the yarn, of course. But thank you all who came out and showed me some support at the Great Smoky Mountain Fiber Fair. It was really amazing getting to meet so many of you, and really great to know that my yarn is going to be knit up into some tremendous projects. I sold a lot of sweater quantities, so I hope that everybody makes something gorgeous. This is all that I have left from my Aura colorway, which was my featured show colorway, plus my new, it's definitely a new staple, but this is the colorway that I've named after my daughter, and I sold most of it, so I'm going to have to dye this one. I've got 4 different bases over here, all featured where my worsted wool normally is, because I thought that might be nice to give that whole colorway its own section when you first enter the store. And I did a little bit of rearranging of the cubbies, not too much, but moved a couple things around. I guess that's the perk of having to take down the whole store, is you get to sort of rethink your layout, and yep, so I didn't change much, but it feels fuller and like a good refresh.